beautiful sound. And if you're wondering where that sound came from, excuse me.
That's not the sound of you going.
Yeah, not that part. Not that beautiful hum that I just did right there. That humdinger. That came from DJ Devin Hancock. You can follow him at Instagram at DJ Devin Hancock. He's doing all kinds of good stuff. Video producing, mixing, mastering. So check him out. All of our banners, all of our artwork is done by Sissy Art. You can also follow her on Instagram. And welcome to episode I don't even know of Last Week Out, because they just keep rolling together and stacking on top of each other, dude.
We got our new sponsor.
And we got a new sponsor too. Thanks for reminding me. I almost forgot about that. For all my vape family out there, okay, we got a good deal for you right now. If you go to buttouteCigs.com, make an online order, put in the promo code Last Week Out. You're going to get 20% off your order. They ship worldwide. It's in there 2-3 business days. And for those of us out there that vape, then you understand how much money we actually spend on that stuff. They've got everything you need. The hardware, the juice, doesn't matter. They've got it. Salt Nicks. Go ahead and hit them up. Get 20% off your order. Support the podcast.
Yeah, butt out. Dang your butt. Yep. Good big butt.
Let's do a couple introductions here. Adjacent to my left is Anthony Ashy Tatum.
Mm-hmm. It's hot out here, man.
It's hot out here. Someone needs to follow him with an ashtray and just scrape his legs for him, because it's just ridiculous, dude. You need some head and shoulders. You need head and body. We got DJ David Slack on the ones and twos over here doing his beautiful thing, mixing and mastering.
It's a fucking plant, Mom.
Mm-hmm. There it is. Then there's me. My name is Ched Z. And I'm feeling good. We just had a nice breakfast with a very, very special guest. All our guests are very special, but this one is extra special, man. She is a woman who's been through a lot. And she's done what she can to be okay. And that's a beautiful thing, and it's cool to sit and have the conversations we had with you today and hear your perspective on things. Because I can look at you and I can tell that, like I was saying, like, you're okay. For what you've gone through, like, you're okay. You can see it in your face, and that's a really beautiful thing. I really don't know where to go from there, man. I guess we'll just kind of get into it. We'll save the story for the podcast. Keep the listeners going. But Miss Debbie Gilbert here.
Hey, thank you for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, breakfast was nice. Thanks for joining us. We know Debbie. Debbie's been around us, and I think in a capacity that we've known you for over a couple of years now. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself as far as where you come from, things like that, maybe a little bit of your backstory, and then we'll get into our relationship with you. So are you from Arizona?
I'm not from Arizona. I'm actually originally from Massachusetts, and I moved to Michigan as a young teen, and then I came to Arizona in 1996.
So you went from cold states to the warm one.
I did, and I wouldn't go back for any kind of money.
No, you don't miss the winters?
I don't, and when I do go back and it's cold, I'm just cold.
Well, is your family Patriots fans?
We are big Patriots fans, big Red Sox fans. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
All right, and that's been the podcast.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Well, so siblings. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have an older brother and a younger sister.
Well, and you were telling me a little bit about your sister at lunch, or at breakfast this morning, excuse me, that she had recently adopted.
Yes, she just adopted 3 little boys, 2, 4, and 6.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I missed the first part. I thought she had kids 2 years apart. She just adopted all 3 at the same time.
She voluntarily did that.
What a strong
Are they all
woman.
related?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they are siblings.
Okay.
They're siblings, 3 brothers.
Yeah, we found out on the podcast last week that David was actually adopted.
Yeah, what was that about?
Yeah,
I've known
I
you
found
for
that
10
out last
years.
week. That was wild.
Oh,
I
you
talked to
didn't
my
find
wife.
that out last week.
I talked to my wife, and she was like, I was like, did you know David was adopted? She was like, yeah, he shares it all the time.
I told you.
That's weird, dude. I've never heard
We were
that.
all shook up. You could tell. I'm going to put that in the class of guys just don't listen, maybe. You think I could pass that off?
I think so.
Okay, so you've moved around. You've been out in Arizona. You have a family now out here.
I do. I'm married. I have a 15-year-old son, Blake. with Down syndrome, who's quite a joy to have.
No kidding. And you were telling me a little bit about your job. You're a human resource.
I am. I'm in human resources, and I've been in it for quite a few years, and I really enjoy it. It allows me to help people, and I like that.
Right. Well, see, I am terrified of human resources. When people come and talk to you, are they always scared?
They are. I tell people all the time, if you involve me in the conversation, it changes the tone.
Yeah, it stays on paper.
Yes.
It's Pip. You're the Pip queen?
Just conversation queen, I think.
Okay.
Anytime that I'm involved in a conversation, it will change the dynamic of it.
Well, you're the right person for the job, and talking with you, I think that you bring a nice compassionate perspective, and I don't think you would be too biased. I'm not very good at human resources intuitively. It's a really, I like dodge the hard conversation, and then I overcompensate when it comes time to have it. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Everybody's like that for the most part. Nobody wants conflict, and I think you have to be taught how to have healthy conversations, not necessarily
Yeah, because now that I think about it, some of my experiences with human resources, the way I acted when I was confronted about something I did, and the way that person reacted to my reaction was always like, I look back at it now and I go, wow, that's a strong individual.
Yeah.
I think that you have to, I think you end up being that way. I think it's a good job choice for somebody who's been a mom.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. You have to be compassionate and understanding.
And tough.
You're the company mom.
Yeah, well, I would say the company cop, like you're in there and you're just laying down the law.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of both. So what do you do for hobbies?
What do I do for hobbies? I love to garden. I love my yard. I could be out there all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
That's my, I think it's just my stress release. I just love to grow things and take care of things.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I really like it. And I have other hobbies, other things that I do. I do a lot of work with other moms. I know it's not maybe a hobby, but it's a love and an interest.
I always say it's a hobby. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a yogi?
I am. I'm a yogi. I've been doing that since about 2009.
That's where I first met you, was you were doing yoga over at this little spot called a halfway house. You were coming over there and teaching yoga. I think it was Wednesday nights, I believe it was.
It was Monday nights.
Monday nights.
I think I was there about 7. That was fun, too. I loved doing that.
Yeah, because you can see it in your postures. I was saying before we cut the mics on. You just got that, you got that brick wall posture. Like, you're just standing straight up. Like, I don't want to fight you. I wouldn't want to wrestle you.
If I came to the human resource office with that posture, I'd be like, oh, no.
I think that makes you stand up straighter, too, is that if you're the human resources person.
You have to be.
Yeah. You got a lot on your back. You got to hold it up.
Yeah.
All right, well, getting right into it. How we know you was through a mutual contact in the rooms of recovery. And we had met your son, and I think it would be best a little bit to share that story. And I think you're the best person to kind of tell it to us, even though we've all are pretty privy to sort of who you are and what you've been through. I think for our listeners, not knowing kind of the dynamic of our relationship, I think it would be cool if we talked about that, and if you feel comfortable sharing a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that as far as us knowing each other, I got involved in the recovery community, not by choice. I don't think that's anything that moms choose. But Andrew was a heroin addict, and when he did choose recovery, and on more than one occasion, as his mom, I decided to be a part of that journey. And at one point it was not a healthy be a part of it, but then it did become a healthy part of it. And how far back do you want me to go?
I mean, I think you sharing a little bit about that, because I actually met you before anything tragic transpired. So you were coming around and helping with some of the events. Like you said, you were at the Memorial Day barbecue and things like that. And so Andrew was your son and afflicted with drug addiction. And so for you, how long was Andrew kind of showing signs of serious addiction?
I think for serious addiction, I think Andrew was about 21 when 19 or 20 when we started with smoking heroin. 21 22 when it became IV drug use of heroin. So it was a really, really rough couple of years as far as the addiction. And we went through a lot.
Was he staying with you guys through that?
For some part of it, he was with us. Andrew went into Calvary in, I think it was May of 2014. And of course, they recommended that he go to sober living and that, all of these things happen. And then, of course, I'm the mom. And I said, no, we don't need to do that. We're not going to, my kid's not going to one of those places. And then I said, and so then he came home, and that lasted about a week. And then and he was using again. So then we did another stint at Calvary. And then that time I did have him go to sober living. And that was about a year back and forth of sober living. And then eventually he did come home. And then eventually our family just disintegrated because of, other issues also. But addiction is really a family disease. And his dad and I separated. And then at that point, I couldn't have Andrew in the home anymore. I had a little guy who was 10 with special needs, and it was unmanageable to have him home.
And you were talking about that, is how the family sometimes kind of gets roped into all of this, and sometimes even ends up, you said, crazier than the actual abuser.
Oh, and I totally agree with that. I think that the whole dynamic just doesn't make any sense. And I know they say codependent and different kinds of things. It's just it's an illness that just permeates every part of your life, and all of your other relationships will be involved in it also. And
it's just, when I think about that, I can remember back, like I would come and stay with my parents for short bouts. Essentially I'd hit rock bottom and I'd go back to mom's house for a shorter period of time. And my stepdad, I think the dynamic that you were kind of painting clearly about your situation kind of translates to what I was dealing with. Was my mom, was more emotionally invested into my recovery than my stepdad was. My stepdad probably had a pretty healthy perspective where he was like, hey, if this kid's not going to get his shit together, he needs to just get out of the house. And I can't remember, besides a couple of volatile times in my house, my stepdad saying something actually hurtful. But for the most part, he was just kind of trying to protect his relationship with my mom and trying to protect his security and everything that was going on with it. And so when you kind of say, that there was some unmanageability going on in the home and things like that, for me, I could see how parents start to compromise their own values, when the kids are going through those. And was that kind of your experience?
That was so my experience. I have this belief system that I live by, and it's based on, honesty and integrity. And I had a conversation with Andrew right before he had overdosed. We were in the hospital, we were in the emergency room, and I sat next to the bed and I said, I got to be done, because at this point I'm doing things that go against my very heart, my soul, my nature. I'm lying to cover up for you. I'm making excuses and taking from Peter to pay Paul. I'm doing things that are not honoring me. Mm-hmm. And I have to stop, because I feel like I'm dying. I literally felt like I'm dying.
Do you think you were motivated solely in the love to kind of decompensate your morals there? Like how did it get to there, like that decline?
I think you're biologically wired to take care of your kids.
Yeah. And
you're biologically wired to make everything okay for people that you love. And I think I thought I was making it okay, and I wasn't making it okay. I wasn't making it better. I've heard a lot of times, my mom used to say, so you're doing this and it's not working. And I would say, yeah. And she said, well, then by all means, keep doing it. So that was, I think, when I was saying that to Andrew, something's got to give, and if that's me, then I have to let you go do this, and I have to do me.
And sometimes in the rooms we see, and sorry, when I say the rooms, I mean the rooms of recovery. And I see that we kind of put in the parents' court, like, hey, you're being a codependent. Hey, you're being enmeshed. You're being these things. But we kind of belittle that biological pull, that's just unwavering in most parents, that they're just going to essentially do whatever it takes to help their kid. And so for you, where did you see, or even did you see, that compromise in your character enough to be able to change your lying or your justifying to help him? Like, at what point did you realize, oh shit, what I'm doing isn't okay? And how did you kind of go about changing that for somebody listening who has a kid that's in active addiction?
Well, I think, I found Andrew. I let Andrew come home because he told me that he was going to get into the Salvation Army. And every day he supposedly went down there to try to get in. And of course, he never went down there to try to get in. But, moms hold on to every bit of hope that you can hold on to. And I found Andrew on the floor in the bathroom, overdosed. I had to slam the door shut, call 911, and give him CPR. And my 10-year-old was in the front room sleeping. And at that point, I said, this is no good. This has got to stop, because I'm enabling him to do this. And there wasn't enabling there. I should never have let him come home. I should have never let him spend the night there. I shouldn't have let that happen. So the police come, the paramedics, and they did revive him. And then when they took him, they said, he's going to so-and-so. And I said, that's good. I don't care where he goes.
Yeah.
I just broke. I just broke because it wasn't okay. That is how I was living, and it wasn't okay that's how my 10-year-old, even though he was asleep, what are you going to say? Don't come in. I'm reviving somebody. That's just, and I think that's where I finally, and I said that to Andrew that morning in the hospital. I love you, but I can't do this anymore.
Well, and you went almost all the way to the brink, almost worst case scenario in that situation. And I think for me, when I talk to parents, because I work in the industry of recovery, and when I talk to parents, they kind of are battling with exactly what you're talking about, is like, do I allow them to be here, and can I live with the grief of feeling responsible for enabling to the point that it could be to that detriment where they overdose in the home? And then on the other hand, it's, hey, I kick them out. I don't let them stay with me. And what if something happens to them out there? So for you, when you talk, and I know that you're so involved with parents now, and we'll get into that, the nons that you're involved with, all the things that you do in the community, how do you sort of help someone to make that decision between those two potential hardships that they're facing?
And they're both hardships, and they're both, it gets to the point of unmanageability. And I think that parents think that if I can keep them here, you're still involved in that sickness where you're trying to control everything that they're doing and everywhere they're going. And you think if you do that, they're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And I think that where I come from for parents is, I'm not telling you to have them stay or to have them go. I'm telling you that you need to go to get help so that those types of decisions are going to be easier to make.
Wow.
I can't tell you that he's going to be okay or she's going to be okay. I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you that you're going to be okay if you just go in with an open mind and listen, and then you'll be able to make those decisions based on where you are.
And go ahead.
So part of our group in the book that we base our program off of, it talks about that if an alcoholic is not ready, then tell them to go out and have a drink. Tell them to go out and try and drink for a little bit and stop abruptly, stuff like that, and to test yourself. But when it comes to opiates specifically and heroin, it's really tough to have that same attitude, I feel like. To say, well, if you're not ready, then go out and try it some more. Because it's not the same.
No, and you
know
can
what I
die.
mean? And that's such a dangerous line to walk, and to tell somebody that. But at the core of it, it's still the same thing. It's the same disease, and that's what people need. I feel like there's no other way to find out. I guess you know what I mean.
And with parents who have children who are opiate addicts, that's the whole problem. If Andrew was an alcoholic, I would have just said, have a good time. I'll see you when you're 70 and you're a miserable old man and you can live like this for the rest of your life. But if you're an opiate addict, you're probably not going to.
Well, and what you were saying too was at the expense of your values. So whether you let them stay or leave, at least stand behind. And maybe am I hearing you correctly in that is like when someone's staying and you're lying and you're manipulating and you're compromising your character, that's where the problem is in those things, not necessarily in them staying at your house. And then even if you ask them to leave, maybe still being supportive and loving and all of those things through that. Do you think that's what's important to kind of focus on?
I do. And I tell parents all the time, start every conversation with, I love you.
Wow.
I love you. And I used to, in the last 6 months that Andrew was out, this is my conversation. Hi. And then he would be belligerent of what he needed and where he was and all those things that happen to you guys that are a crisis that you don't understand that you're making them happen. And and I would say,
You got us on that one.
no to whatever the request was. Andrew, detox or the emergency room? That is what I'm willing to do. I love you. And then he would be again, and then I would say, I'm going to go. I love you. You call me when you're ready and you want me to take you somewhere. I'll take you anywhere you want to go.
Yeah, I hear us in the rooms put our parents through incredibly leveraging situations where it's like, listen, I stole this and I need the money or else I'm going to get killed. You know, did you have any of those?
Oh yeah, I paid for iPads and all kinds of things that, that he would, and this is what I mean about the compromising your own belief system, things he would steal from us that he would then sell that I would buy back so that my husband wouldn't know it was ever stolen.
Wow. And you have to keep that from the husband.
Yes, which
forever.
Well, I mean, he knows now. I'm saying it on a podcast. But no, he knows now. Andrew's dad and I actually just got remarried in November of last year. And that last 10 months that Andrew was sober and that we were involved in the community, our family did a lot of healing all the way around. And I think if we wouldn't have, it would have been more of a tragedy than it was, because it was a tragedy. Mm-hmm. But nobody on that day didn't know that everybody loved everybody.
Well, and that day, and we haven't even addressed it. So what is that day?
That day is the day that I got a phone call from one of Andrew's roommates saying that he was unresponsive.
And he was living in?
He was living in a sober living environment.
Mm-hmm.
He was moving that morning. He was going to come stay with me for a few weeks until he moved into a house with some other friends that were sober on January 1st.
Of 2017
is when he was going to move. He died on December 13th, 2016.
And so for you, you said that, prior to that, your family was, in hardship and in turmoil, but that day seemingly had a little bit of bonding to it for your family. I think so, and I think that there wasn't anything that was left unsaid. I loved him, he loved me. We knew it. There's something about that is in those moments of pure tragedy that kind of create a moment of clarity. It's kind of like you don't wish them on anybody, but I know for me, never am I the most authentic me more than in those moments. There's something about them that really cultivates an opportunity to show emotion and show how much you care about people. I think so, and
I just had a friend lose their son, and I said to another friend who's in recovery, I said, well, what a blessing that you have the ability to show up for her, because that's a blessing to have that, because there's some people who don't have that ability to show up for somebody.
Did you have that then when you were in crisis?
Yes, I did. I was really showered with love and attention from the recovery community, from my family, from my friends. Yes.
Did you know where to go as far as the support groups and things like that?
I did know where to go. David sucked me into a lot of things.
He does that. That's his MO.
See, it's not just guys in the room. It's everyone.
Even today, the other day, I told my husband, I said, well, David has me doing this thing. Of course he does. Of course he does. After Andrew died, I was really, that group really stayed close in contact with me. Just a lot of great people. And I think February after Andrew passed away, 2017, I was invited to help with H&On.
What's H&On?
H&On is a family support group for family and friends of people who are affected by heroin addiction.
And these aren't just parents who are going through necessarily tragedy, but, well, I guess it would be tragic, but not necessarily death, but also active addiction.
Recovered addicts, too.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I probably had a 50-50 on recovering addicts and parents and loved ones, because recovering addicts love recovering addicts. And isn't there always there's always a fear. I mean, it's very fearful. And I think that when you're in recovery for yourself, that doesn't mean that you know exactly what recovery looks like when your loved one is an addict.
So what are they recovering from? So say somebody's like my family, now I'm in recovery. What would they be coming to H&On for?
Well, I think that even when your children are in recovery, you still need to recover yourself, because it's so traumatic.
Yeah.
And there's so much blame. The blame that parents put on themselves to think that they actually had some sort of control over what was happening. And I think that that's a great thing to recover for. And it's great to be part of the community that your kids are involved in. And knowing you're not alone. You can't walk into, like I said earlier, you can't walk into the grocery store and say, hey, I just got in the car and chased a heroin dealer down the street so he wouldn't sell to my kid. People are going to be like, somebody call somebody. But if you walk into one of these rooms and you say that, people go, oh, yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too. And there's a lot to say for that, because it makes you feel like you're okay. If somebody else is doing it, you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's how can you not just automatically try and blame yourself without having any kind of introspective look at it? You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not a parent, but I could just imagine, like, you see Karen next door, and her kids are doing all these things, and then you see like this other lady next door, and then you feel like your children are this, like, what did I do?
Yes.
Yeah, my dad struggled with that a lot, and my mom and my dad, because they provided such a good life for me. As far as I can remember, it was like no matter what, like they just always made sure that like I was into something, whether it was baseball, skateboarding. My dad made sure I had new shoes. My dad remember when I first learned how to do a trick on a skateboard, and he told me about that when I got sober. He was like, I was just so proud of you. And they've just always been there for me. But for some reason, I decided to lie, manipulate, steal, cheat from them, and just like bring their lives down with mine. And it was like, how do you not blame yourself when you're a parent? It's like,
well, and like they're saying is, for you, do you hold true to the idea? And I can't possibly imagine being a parent with no like regret or thinking, well, I made a mistake there. I mean, I have a dog. I regret a lot of the things I've done with my dog in this period of time, and if it runs out and gets hit by a car, I'm gonna, have that. And so for you coming into the rooms of H&On, is the unequivocal knowledge that you guys aren't responsible there? Is that sort of the ethos of the group?
I don't think so. I think that the ethos of the group is that you are responsible for yourself. I think that a lot of parents, because they feel so responsible for their child, they feel like they have to do something to fix that. And I try to tell people, let's take a look at yourself. What are things that you can do? And I really think that people react to people who are taking care of themselves.
Tell us 3 C's. The 3 C's.
You can't control it. You can't cure it.
Didn't cause it.
And you didn't cause it.
Oh, damn.
Lost a C there.
See, triple C's in our groups means something else.
And I think that, my husband went through the same thing. He gave Andrew, my husband didn't have a dad. He gave Andrew everything, you name it, motocross, whatever sport he wanted to play, his time. And especially his time, like a lot of his time. And when this happened, he was really at a loss. Like, what did I do? I was trying to do all the right things. And a lot of parents will feel that. I was doing all the right things. What did I do? And you're going to have regrets. There's going to be things that pop up. You go, I could have handled that better.
Right.
But this just isn't one of them. You can handle it better by taking care of yourself, but you couldn't have made this happen. It's just not, it doesn't work like that. If it did, then all of us parents, this wouldn't be happening.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. Let's take a quick break. We're at the 30-minute mark. Time flies by. So we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to be back after this. And thank you so much for everything we've done up until this point.
Oh, thank you.
And we're back from our break. And David's trying to box me out with more sound. Always trying to do that, dude. Always trying to box me out, dude. Make me feel less than, dude. You know what? I'm tired of that. I'm tired of it, dude. But you know what I'm not tired of? All our sick vape gear that's been provided by Butt Out E-Cigs.
Good segue.
Okay. You go up on there. You get up on there on the line. Okay. You type in buttouteCigs.com. You make an online order. You type in the promo code last week out. And what's going to happen when they do that, Anthony?
We're going to get 20% off. If you type that in, you get 20% off. And guess what? It gets shipped right to your door. They got all the juices, all the hardware, maybe even the software that you'd need.
Everything you need. And that's all I've got. Coming back from the break.
So we took a break, and we sat out in the living room. We talked a little bit, and I think that the best place that we could go with this right now is post-tragedy, what you're doing in the community, who you are now, because I think for me, I find it fascinating how you have turned this leaf. And I don't know what you were doing extensively during Andrew's recovery, but I know post Andrew's death, I've seen you in the rooms of H&On. I've seen you at recovery events. I've heard you sharing stories about being at the Capitol and advocating for us. And so for you, that tool, I'm so fearful to talk about somebody's life as a mechanism for someone else's life. But for you, what I've seen is that or at least it seems to me that you have taken this tragedy and turned it into something pretty powerful. And so I'd like to kind of hear what you're doing and your perspective.
Oh, I think my biggest perspective is I feel like I'm walking for two people.
You were saying that.
And I have to make that difference for two people, which is more than one person. And I think that, and I said before, at the end of all this, when I get there, I want Andrew to say, "You did a good job, Mom." You did some good stuff. And even if it's one person, if I said one thing and one person went, oh, yeah, okay, then and then I think that's all that I need is just one person. So I think that a lot of what I do is try to connect with that one person. And I do it one person at a time.
Yeah, and what group specifically?
Well, I have H-Anon here in the Valley, and that encompasses a lot of Anons. You know, there's a lot of great people in the recovery community in the Valley that are in the Anons that I work with. And I do a lot of connection with people on Facebook through the Addict's Mom is a pretty powerful platform. And we have, there's a national, and then there's the state, Arizona, the Addict's Mom. And we make a lot of connections there. And a lot of times we're able to help parents and help moms get to help, to a meeting, just to let them know they're not alone, which is huge.
So one thing that I've noticed, that there's always this disconnect with the way that we find people that need help. There always has to be some kind of intermediary, right? There has like an institution, a jail, a rehab, sober living, some kind of bridge, because your normal everyday addict who's out there on the street or wherever doesn't meet us normally,
right,
on a day-to-day basis. So how do you, what's that bridge look like for you, I would say?
I think that bridge for the most part for families is other families. And just like you reach out to that addict that you may meet in any of those instances, jail, rehabs, we reach out to the parents there also. Because, even with there's always somebody connected to that addict. There's somebody else who's been affected by their addiction. So we always try to connect that way. And a lot of times it's through just word of mouth. You know, I might hear of somebody whose child is suffering, and then I'll just reach out. Hi, my name is Debbie. If you need anything, feel free to call me.
Do you feel responsible to do that?
I don't feel responsible to do that. There's a difference between responsible for and a responsibility to. So
What's the difference?
Well, you can be responsible for your child who's young, or in that instance, that's a responsible for. Responsibility to is like to your spouse, to your loved one, to your community, to those kinds of things. So I'm not responsible for, I have a responsibility to.
And what does your responsibilities look like for you? Like, where do you set that responsibility at? Like, what do you do unequivocally, do you think? Or maybe not even unequivocally, but like what? Because when we were talking earlier, you were saying I answer the phone.
I always answer the phone, no matter what. If I have somebody who's reaching out to me, I answer the phone. I do a better job the longer that I've been at this of not, and you know how this works when you're working with an addict. Mm-hmm. You can't let yourself get entrenched in what they're doing. You really have to set boundaries on what you're willing to do. And I've had a few instances where I've had to say, this isn't good for me, I need to not do this. And it just really depends. I'm always going to answer the phone, and I'm always going to be there for somebody. But there are times when I have to say, this isn't good for me, I can't do this.
Having good boundaries.
Having good boundaries. And I think that I was talking earlier, there's a cycle with it. I'm helping, I have to take care of myself. I'm helping, I have to take care of myself.
Yeah, what does taking care of yourself look like?
Taking care of yourself looks like, to me, especially since I've lost Andrew, it really means slowing down and stepping back. I was talking earlier, you get older and tasks aren't that important. And by tasks, I mean things that you think you need to do, which you really don't need to do. And I really try to lead everything. I tell everybody all the time, are you leading with love? I mean, is that where you are when you start? Because if you're not, then it's probably not something you need to be doing. And I think that's where I try to spend time with my husband. I try to spend time with my children. I'm more apt to just fluff off than I ever was before.
What is fluff off?
Well, I'm a type A personality, so fluff off to me can be just sit down for 2 hours and watch a movie.
Oh, man.
But that is, I have to do things to recharge and take care of myself. And sometimes when you're in the recovery community, after Andrew passed away, I went in just full bore. I'll be on every committee. I'll go everywhere. I'll do everything. And then you have to start to be reasonable and say, what actually can I do? And I can't do everything. And I think the biggest thing is I can't stop this from happening. I can make a little difference every day, but I can't stop addiction. I can't stop kids from dying. I can't make more moms not join this awful, awful group, which I think in the beginning I felt like if they would just listen to me, can we just stop this? So I think that's where my boundaries are. I have to be realistic in what I can accomplish.
Well, and I think that's a necessary sort of journey along the path that you're going on, or even anybody in recovery is like, you know, for a while you had said for people in recovery, you think it's really good for them to be almost unhealthily busy in the beginning, you know, and do you think that natural progression for you was necessary during your grieving process?
Oh, I think so. I think that if I wasn't getting phone calls and invited to everything and to be everywhere, I think it would have been disastrous. I think that if you talk to anybody, the best thing that you can ever do for yourself is to help someone else. So if I wasn't helping someone else, I don't know where I would have been. And it's really, I had so many great lessons from Andrew in his sobriety. And one of the best ones was, and it's kind of my mantra, you know, he would say to me, if you're going to have love and compassion for me, then you have to have it for everybody. You can't pick and choose.
Oh, fuck.
Yes. And that's your kid calling you on your shit.
Hold on, can you say that again? That messed me up.
Andrew was down at the courthouse, and I called him on the phone, and he said, yeah, so-and-so's down here, and it's somebody that was active using that he used with. And I said, you're talking to him? And he said, yes, Mom. And I said, he's a drug addict. And he said, so am I. Mm-hmm. And I said, I know. And he was so calm on the phone, and he goes, Mom, I know this causes anxiety. I know you're upset, but love and compassion for me means love and compassion for all of us. You can't pick and choose.
Right.
And I was like, wow, this kid. And I have to say, you know, Andrew passed away on a Tuesday. And that initial rage that you feel, I am going to find out who did this. How did it happen? What happened? And I finally got in his phone, and I found out the circumstances of what happened. And of course, that person was on Andrew's Facebook page and was like, I can't believe this happened. Oh my gosh, he was doing so well. And I just went off. And I said horrible, horrible things and started sending horrible messages to this drug addict. And I was sitting in my living room, and I literally heard him say, Mom, stop. You're talking to a drug addict. Kindness and compassion for me means kindness and compassion for all of us, and you can't pick and choose. And I thought, son of a bitch, you know, because it wasn't this person's fault. It's not my fault. It's not anybody's fault. And I had to realize that, and I did. I'm not going to go have drinks with this person or anything like that, but I had to forgive them and not hold it like it wasn't a crime against me. It's an addiction. So I use that quote all the time when I'm talking to people. You know, you can't pick and choose. Kindness and compassion, you can't pick and choose.
Well, and you were actually dropping a couple of quotes on us out there that were really powerful. I think, too, what I care to ask you about is, was there a victimology during all of this, and when did it shift? Because you don't sit here to me to be, I feel grief with you when you talk about it, and you've even teared up a few times, and it's like, that's the appropriate emotion, right? But for you, it doesn't seem to me like you're a person that's beaten down by the tragedy or being a victim. Is that just your personal character?
I think it's my personal character. I also think that I go back to, I'm walking for two people and I have to honor him. And I can't honor him if I'm curled up in a ball in the corner. And I can't honor anybody if I'm blaming everybody. You know, I had another young man that Andrew used with in his younger years, and he reached out to me and he wanted me to call him. And again, I was in the car and I sent Scott and Blake into the pizza place, and I sat in the car and I said, I'm like, damn it, Andrew, I got to call this kid back and I have to tell him it's okay. And I heard him say, yeah, you do. Let's go. Call him. And that young man was on the phone. He was in recovery, and he made amends to me on the phone, and he was crying, and he said, it's my fault. I know you think it's my fault. It's my fault. I'm the one that, took him down this path. And I said, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Because if I say it's your fault, what is that going to do for him? That's not going to do anything for him. That, again, is somebody's son, somebody's loved one, that's a drug addict, that basically is crying and begging me for forgiveness on the phone. What am I going to say? You're an asshole and it is your fault?
Yeah.
That's not love and compassion for everybody, and not picking and choosing.
How's your faith been? Has it vacillated?
I had somebody ask me that the other day, talking about going to a medium and trying to, contact Andrew. And they said, well, most people do that when they don't know where they are. And I said, oh, well, I know where he is. So I guess I don't have to do that because I know where he is. Yeah, it's vacillated, but I really try to go with, I was chosen to be Andrew's mom. And I really think that there's a divine thing that happens in how we walk our path. And would I choose to not do that, to not be here? No. I would still have chose to be Andrew's mom.
Yeah, that's incredibly powerful. We've had, I don't know if you heard, we had a guest named Danielle on here, and she had another mutual friend of all of ours who had passed that she was very close with. And I had heard in all of that was she was eternally grateful because she got to spend all that time with him. Not to say that if she couldn't essentially mold it the way she'd like to, that she wouldn't change it, because she would have, I believe is what she shared. But in hindsight, saying, I'm just grateful for the time that I got, because I could have not got that time, essentially. And that was incredibly impactful for me, because I look at some of the tragedies that we've seen and I would change them if I could. But for me, I can't, right. I can't. And here I am. And so for you, you seem like you are not only making the best that you can, but also choosing to use it as a tool.
I do. And I think, I tell people all the time, I'm very blessed. I am. I'm very blessed. I have a wonderful family. I'm very blessed. If I had Andrew still, I'd be off the charts blessed. But I think you have to be grateful. I think we really get into that resentment and that whole cyclical thing when we start to say how much we've been wronged. If this wouldn't happen, then I wouldn't have done this. If this wouldn't have, then this. And it's, so if you go there, it's not going to end well. You're just going to keep on that whole path of resentment of your life, of the people in your life, of what's happened. And I don't jump up and down and say, hey, it's great. Because it's not great. To me, losing your kid is like having one in reverse. As happy as you are to get them, to give them back sucks bad. But if we're not, if I don't stand tall, that's a reflection for him too, I think, is how I feel about it.
Well, and that's really beautiful. And I know that you're helping a ton of people, and you're kind of, you know, I mean, you're doing the most. You had told me a story about a police officer who gave you resources and how, you know, why he was doing that was because he had been impacted by this disease. Now, for you, what are you doing in the community right now? What are you working on?
Well, I've worked on whatever David signs me up for.
David's like a whirlpool of commitments. If you stand too close, you're just going to end up riddled with commitments.
He's tried to get me a few times, and I'm like, nope.
Right now, I'm working on a panel of Anons that we're going to have at the convention here in July, and that's from David. I spoke last August in Portland at the convention, which was really great. I love to connect with young people and just have a different perspective for them. A lot of them just don't, they don't get their moms, or they don't get their dads, or sometimes the relationship has been so strained that they don't know what to do, when really all parents want you to do is just be okay.
Well, in that workshop that you did there in Portland, like, they have no, I mean, maybe there's Al-Anon or something else out there, but a lot of those people have no exposure to any of that.
Right.
You know?
And there was even a few parents that were in the meeting in Portland that afterwards were like, thank you. I don't know what to do. Can I have your email address? Can I know how to get a hold of you on Facebook? And I'm like, yeah, that's great. And it's a resource for them. Even people at that convention that I got hooked up with from different parts of the country, can you help? Can I have a parent call you? Can I, we're having such a hard time, and I'm always available. So it's good to be able to have my experiences help other people.
Well, and they absolutely do. If you could share with a parent going through, and it's kind of, I'm trying to kind of bridge the gap to people who haven't lost a kid, because for you, I feel like your knowledge is way bigger than that, and I hope that someone listening who hasn't is able to kind of transition, whatever they're going through into what you're talking about doing to overcome, as far as, reaching out and being a part of the community and just being of service to people, like you had said. For you, for a parent going through what you were going through even prior to Andrew's death, or a parent who is dealing with that, where do they start? Like, where would they even start?
Well, I think that, first realizing that you're not alone and trying to find a connection somewhere. And a lot of the rehabs and that, where your children may be, is a good place to start, as far as trying to find some support to know that you're not alone. And that is just huge. I think that a lot of times we just like with addiction, we segregate ourselves and really just try not to be out in the world, because we don't want anybody to know what's going on. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's nobody throwing their hand up in the air and saying, my kid's a heroin addict, hi, look at me. So I think that the stigma is so huge, and there's so many different places that all the Anons have websites and phone numbers. There's tons of Facebook pages that, I know that Facebook gets a bad rap, but some of the groups are just so helpful and can so much bring connection for people who are going through some of the same kind of things.
Well, that's great for them. I mean, as far as the Facebook groups being a platform for connection, we've seen that. We have a couple of pages where they're just so well intended and they help so much, and it's so hard for people to find resources, in the community.
It really is. Sucks bad. When I have to tell you, when Andrew was in the middle of his addiction and we were trying to find help, there was nowhere to go. And I have now on my computer, on my phone, like those snapshots of where do I go? I need help, and we don't have any insurance. Here. Where do I do? Who do I call? And I need help. And I say here. I mean, there's so many resources now that compared to then, I had no idea where to go and what to do. And I've had people, professionals, who would say to me, well, I'll find somewhere for him to go. And I've whacked out on him. No, you won't. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. There's no support for these people. There's nowhere to go. So I think that as a community, we've really rallied, and we're doing a better job of getting the word out there and helping people. And it's work that we all have to keep on doing, because it's an important message that people realize that they're not alone. There's help.
No, yeah, you're 100% right. I can remember my mom struggling for resources, and it is just an uphill battle. Well, you've definitely covered a lot of ground, and it's been incredibly impactful. Do you feel like today you're still becoming a better person through all of this stuff?
Oh, I think so. I have to remind myself all the time. I have to still say, are you living that? And no, we're not perfect. I'm not.
So keep signing you up for stuff?
Yeah, keep my phone number, David. I think that we have to be constantly reminded of, in yoga they call that a mantra, and Andrew didn't know he was giving me my mantra, but that love and compassion for all, you can't pick and choose.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel love and compassion every day. There are some days where I'm just like, damn it. But I strive to have love and compassion. And I think that's just huge, especially with addiction. It's hard to start that way. Come from love and compassion is a hard place to be every day.
Those are the driving principles, though.
Yes.
Well, and I think that takes a certain amount of faith in my mind. It's like, how do we even get to there? Because for me, I would say I'm constantly working and I'm constantly growing also. And having a list of principles that I can use as sort of the trajectory, because when you go back and you look at, a parent's good intentions, you can have good intentions but still be harming somebody, either yourself or the addict. And when you were saying, being loving and having compassion, when you have a drug addict in your house who's doing these things, you do have love and compassion for them, but you're probably not having love and compassion for yourself. And then there's other principles too, right? Like your honesty or your loyalty to your relationship that sort of get compromised in the mess of it. And you covered, when it's a problem, because having the love and compassion for a drug addict who's using obviously isn't a problem, but when it starts to compromise other areas of your life is when you started noticing, oh wow, like this isn't helpful anymore.
Well, because love and compassion has to start with yourself. And I think that if I look back on me and my family in the midst of Andrew's addiction, active addiction, I wasn't having love and compassion for myself, and I wasn't having love and compassion for him in reality, because I was trying to make excuses and adjust things and control the world, so I wasn't having love and compassion. So I think that parents, they think that they're doing the best that they can, and they are with the information that they have. I did the best I could with the information I had. When I had better information, I did a better job. So I think that it makes a difference. If I had love and compassion for Andrew, I certainly wasn't having it for my spouse. I was being involved in the craziness of it, which included lying and making excuses and doing whatever I had to protect Andrew from himself.
There's no perfect formula in this shit show sometimes.
There is not a perfect formula, but I think that I had a parent say to me one time, don't take away what they are capable of doing on their own.
Who, the parent?
Yeah, well, we take it away from our kids because they're addicts and we know better and we can tell them how to do it.
Steal their dignity.
Yeah, and you do steal their dignity. You take away their ability to do it on their own. And then it just becomes cyclical from there.
I think we do that in a lot of areas of our life, huh?
We do, because we think we're taking care of everybody. We think we're doing it and we think we're taking care of everybody.
I do it because I'm pomp. I'm like, well, I know. Just look at me, I know. But you don't.
What do you mean pump?
like ego, like I feel like I know, and so I'm saving this person the journey.
Oh, you don't know? I thought you knew this entire time.
I always know.
Oh,
Man.
wow.
You're not wrong if you just listen.
Okay, so as the oldest one here, none of us know. I'm just saying.
You know what I know
Sucks
now,
bad.
though? You know what I know now? I know now that I don't know.
Exactly. I used to ask my mom all the time, like, when will I know? And she's like, I don't know yet. So, so you're not going to know.
Okay. Well, we're wrapping up. It's been over an hour, but what I would like for you to do is, just one last tidbit for anybody out there struggling. Maybe point them in the right direction. Whatever it looks like for you. How would you like to wrap this thing up? You got anything left on your heart to say?
I think I have that you're going to be okay. So wherever you are, if you're listening, if you're struggling, if you're a parent and you're in this, you're going to be okay. And I don't know what that okay looks like, but you're going to be okay. And reach out to any of the resources that you can find and get help, not for your child and not for your significant other. Get help for yourself.
Thank you so much, Debbie.
That's beautiful. And ending with some things that I do know. Hold on, David. Turn the music down.
It's literally the lowest it can go.
Turn it off. Turn it off. Turn the music off right now, dude. I have some important things to say. I'm serious, dude. I'll come over there and put you in a headlock, dude. All right, listen. This is what I do know. Listen to me. This is what I know. And that is that you can follow us on YouTube. Okay? You can like, you can subscribe, you can support the podcast. You can follow us on Stitcher, Google, iTunes. What's the other one?
Shouldn't
Spotify.
you be saying this over the outro music?
No, dude. I got a few more things I want to say, dude. Will you
Okay,
just chill
okay,
for a
okay.
second, man? All right, dude. And you know what else I know is that there are resources out there for parents who are struggling. And you mentioned the Facebook groups. What are some of those Facebook groups that someone could put in the search bar?
The Addict's Mom, you could put in the search bar.
Okay.
Any Koanon group would be in the search bar. Naranon, H-Anon.
So those are all CO-Anon, A-N-O-N.
Yes, Anon. So an Al-Anon is also has groups. There's a huge PAL presence here in the Valley, Parents of Addicted Loved Ones, that has groups throughout the Valley. That's another great resource.
Thank you so much. Really, honestly, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I've been more quiet than I usually am during the podcast because I'm really just trying to like soak in and listen to what you're saying. And it was really, really good. And I just want to thank you. I have nothing insightful to say about this whatsoever. So if you're listening,
David, play that outro.
If you think I'm about to, start playing the outro. Fade me out, dude. Fade me out. Fade me out. Fade me out.
No.
Okay. All right.
We're just going to end the show.
Oh, dude, just end the show right now. Thank you, Miss Debbie. I appreciate you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.